We are live on YouTube and LinkedIn. Our topic today is the green movement and the world's demands for crude oil. Welcome, Ronald Stein.
Armando, glad to be aboard.
Thank you. Let me share before we start the conversation itself about the card with a barrel of oil. We still have no substitutes for petroleum products such as petrochemicals and transportation fuels. This is a picture that brings us a barrel and see 4.1 at the right bottom of the screen, petrochemical feedstocks. So all products that we use every day, like plastics, rubber, safety glass, nylon, detergents, everything that we use every day, we use based on petrochemical fuels. And the most important thing is that jet fuels, gasoline, diesel, they are not replaceable at this time. So my question for you, Ronald, the first one, is the following. Let me remove here. The green movement, for sure, will decrease crude oil demand, right?
No. Well, let me go back for a second to the barrel that you showed. That barrel did not exist 200 years ago. The list of products you had did not exist 200 years ago. You have to remember, 200 years ago, we had no hospitals. We had no airports. We had no ships. We had no planes. It was a different one. We're a materialistic society. And the green movement says, well, wind and solar is going to replace that barrel of oil. Well, first of all, it's an impossibility because wind and solar only can generate electricity. Wind and solar cannot make waxes, can't make asphalt, can't make solvents, can't make defibrillators. They only generate electricity. Whereas oil is virtually never used to generate electricity. It's only used to make products. It's, human ingenuity has gotten all the oil derivatives manufactured from oil. We can make all kinds of things. And like I say, there's like 6,000 products in our daily lives. And what the green movement is doing, wind and solar is going to replace fossil fuels. Well, you can't make wind turbines without fossil fuels. You can't make solar panels without fossil fuels. The lubricants for the wind turbines is from fossil fuels. So you're just increasing the need for fossil fuels to build electrical generating systems that don't work most of the time. And then the other problem is wind turbines and solar panels pretty much do not exist in other than wealthy countries, because wealthy countries, they can subsidize anything. And wind turbines are not being built by private enterprise because there's no return on investment. It's being funded by taxpayer dollars.
Yep.
And when you take a look at the 8 billion people on this planet, 80% of them, which is more than 6 billion people, they're living on less than $10 a day. They can't subsidize themselves out of a paper bag. Mm-hmm. They're not going to build wind turbines. And when you take a look at statistics, they're building coal-fired power plants because coal is abundant, it's reliable, it's inexpensive. It has to be inexpensive because they can't buy anything. And they're just living on bare minimums. So no, the green movement is increasing our need for oil because we're building redundant systems that are not replacing reliable systems. You need continuous uninterruptible electricity for hospitals, for communication, for the military. If you're on the operating table, you don't want the lights to go out because wind stopped blowing.
And the backup systems are made by natural gas.
Natural gas. Well, you take a look. We got 6 ways to generate electricity. You got coal, natural gas, hydro, nuclear, wind, and solar. Those 6 ways to generate electricity, none of them can exist without oil. Because all the parts, the components, the wire, the insulation, the computers, the air conditioning, the glass in the doors, the upholstery, everything is made from oil. You get rid of oil, Armando, you get rid of electricity. We're taking a great step to go back to the 1800s.
Do you believe that this drama can end, can finish with the Republican administration starting on January 25?
I think it's going to start making a turn because we know that the first country to went green was Germany. They now have the most expensive electricity in the world. California is right behind them. I think we got the second most expensive electricity in the world. And I think the election results were basically, the party that was really, really pushing the renewables, to replace fossil fuels, like I say, it's an impossibility. So yeah, they lost the presidency, they lost the House of Representatives, they lost the Senate, and I think the wealthy countries, America, is the voters spoke up. The cost is just out of hand, and if we're driving up the cost of electricity, there's billions of people that have no electricity, and we're increasing the cost of electricity. They're never going to have electricity.
And at the same time, when we see green technologies, we do not see investors, private investors, and entrepreneurs. We see because they are looking for low costs energy, and
Low cost and return on investment.
Yeah,
if they're going to
it's not the
invest in
case.
dollars, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
when you take a look at wind and solar, they don't work most of the time, and they're very expensive. And like I say, without the subsidies, they do not exist. In fact, I was just on a call because you take a look at all the wind turbines in the world. It's only built by the wealthy countries. Take the United States, take the UK, Germany, Australia. They represent maybe 10% of the 8 billion on this planet. The other 90% can't
Yeah,
afford to subsidize anything. And so it's an ideological effort to reduce emissions in your backyard, but
yeah,
being increasing around the world.
yeah. No doubt. But the frequent speech of the increasing understanding of the roles of oil and petroleum, this speech is not working,
No,
not working well.
no. I think I'm seeing it around the world that I write a lot of articles. My passion is energy literacy. And my passion is to stimulate conversations on energy literacy. And the rewarding thing is I'm seeing articles written around the world by people in every different country talking about the same subject, not just me. And so, and they have their flavor, their take on it. But yeah, basically we need cost-effective electricity. And, it's the products that the materialistic society we have today is made our lives very comfortable. You know, I always tell people when you go to a hospital, the office, the airport, try to identify one thing only that was not made from fossil fuels. I mean,
It's interesting.
even fertilizers, the pesticides and the,
Both sides, yes.
et cetera, is from natural gas.
Yeah. Last week, Cleveland Jones, a professor, and we did a podcast about the end or the beginning of the end of wind power. What do you see? How do you see this issue?
He's right. He's 100% correct. Yeah, because we're running out of wealthy countries to do it. And, the more and more wind we build, the higher the cost of electricity is. And that's very inflationary. It causes the cost of food to go up. And so the cost of labor has to go up. And it just builds and builds on itself. And so we have to, it is coming to an end. And the more wind and solar we have, the more expensive it is. The cost of living here in the United States, just the bare minimum is huge. The bare minimum, in developing countries is a lot less. Of course, I got nothing too.
This topic of the beginning of the end of wind power, you see that is becoming evident, clear to the green supporters, or not yet?
I think it's becoming apparent. I think that's why the party that lost the presidency is reevaluating their whole platform, because they've been all gung ho about going wind and solar, and the public is concerned about the cost. And what benefit are they getting from it? It's more expensive to live. As I mentioned, Germany's got the most expensive electricity, and California's right behind them. Living in California, I see our homeless population just growing out of control because, most people don't have the ability to save money. They live paycheck to paycheck, and they have debt from school, from credit cards, auto loans, and so they're one paycheck away from going into homeless. If you lose a job and they lose that paycheck, they got no way to recover. And once you're homeless, whoa, now it's a huge jump to get back into the income generating stream. And our population of homeless is growing here in California, and they want to solve the homeless problem. Well, the homeless problem was actually, I think, caused by inflationary acts. Everything is so inflationary that California is a very expensive place to live, and if you're not making any money, you may be part of that homeless population. So we got to reduce the cost of living if you want to reduce the homeless, or you can subsidize building houses for them, which increases the cost everywhere else. Someone's got to pay that subsidy.
I know that you are pro products, not pro oil, but Mr. Trump's speech is pro oil. I suppose he understands a little bit different, maybe pro products at the same time. But and he is very friend to Elon Musk, that's EV producer. How do you see this conflict with two very friends people?
Well, with Trump being pro oil, the basic is we've had 200 years to replace it, but not able to do it. And so, as I mentioned before, when I was interviewed on a New York TV station, they said, "Hey, Ron, we understand you're pro oil." I said, "I'm not pro oil. I'm pro the products. It's the products that have made society the way it is over the last 200 years." Now, bringing Elon Musk in, apparently he's going to try and use Elon Musk to make government more efficient. Well, the good news is if he makes the government more efficient, the bad news is unemployment rate's going to go up. I mean, take one example, the Department of Energy. When the oil embargo hit in 1973, which is 50 years ago, the Department of Energy was formed. One responsibility: don't let this happen again. Well, the DOE in 50 years has grown to 14,000 employees. They have an annual budget of $42 billion.
Wow.
And what do? I don't know.
So, 14,000.
Wow. Yeah. And so if Elon Musk comes in and makes them more efficient, we could have 12,000 people on unemployment.
But EVs will be a matter that Mr. Trump will focus, or he will, let's say, let this run autonomously.
Well, I guess the only thing I've got a couple things against EV. One is they're subsidizing them. And, from the book that Todd Rohrer and I wrote, Clean Energy Exploitations, all exotic minerals and metals to build those EV batteries, to build wind turbines and solar panels, are coming from developing countries that have no environmental laws, no labor laws. They're exploiting people who have yellow, brown, or black skin. The environmental degradation on their land is atrocious. And by subsidizing EVs, our government is basically encouraging China and Africa continue exploiting your people who have yellow, brown, and black skin. Continue the environmental degradation on your land. We're going green. I think it's unethical, immoral, and hypocritical. There is a place for EVs. It's for the wealthy because when you take a look at the profile of an EV owner, highly educated, high income, multi-car family, low mileage requirements. And so if they have an EV, they have a second car or a third car. It's not their only car. That's the truth.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to have one car only and be EV.
Exactly. Right. And so, if you have an EV, you can use less gas and, troll around. And because most people have EVs are just parked in the garage.
Yeah, that's right. Let me change a little bit our conversation to the carbon markets. Selling and buying carbon credits involving wealthy countries and countries like Brazil and other like Brazil that has too much carbon capture. How do you see these markets? Is it something, let's see, serious?
Well, I think it's for the wealthy countries. It's a toy because you're buying and selling carbon credits. Well, developing countries don't have any money to buy and sell carbon credits. They just generate the carbons. And so, it's really limited to just the wealthy countries. And again, the wealthy countries only represent maybe 10% of the 8 billion people on this planet. That's
80% of the money. So, and they are not doing the homework to solve the carbon emissions. And they are buying credits from other countries.
Exactly. The 8 billion people on this planet are trying to live and survive. And they're going to do what they have to do to live and survive. And so, there's thousands of coal-fired power plants under construction. The countries that want electricity are starting to seriously, develop nuclear, which is continuous electricity, uninterruptible electricity, dispatchable electricity, and it's zero emission, and it requires basically the least amount of land. When you take a look at wind and solar, huge acreages of wind and solar. And if the sun's not shining and wind's not blowing, they're not working. And the longevity is very short. Take a look at not Italy, France. They've had, 7 decades of nuclear. Wind turbines not going to last for 70 years. It's going to wear out and you're going to have to replace it probably every 20 years. And so, you have that situation. And then when you take a look at, the U.S. Navy, the submarines, the aircraft carriers. Now, these are big, big pieces of equipment. Submarines are huge. The aircraft carriers are basically an airport on the water. They're twice as big as huge. All their aircraft carriers and submarines are powered by nuclear.
Nuclear.
Yes.
Yeah. UK is not, let's see, very. UK do not like too much nuclear as California. Germany, California, and UK.
California doesn't like nuclear. We shut down one. We only have one left, and that's on the chopping blocks. The governor gave it a little life extension because he did realize that if we got rid of it, there'd be a lot of blackouts, and so he's going to keep it a little bit longer. But it's again, it's the wealthy countries that are, making these policy decisions that it's not in the best interest of the 8 billion people on this planet.
And as you said, so the price, price of electricity in California is becoming higher every day.
Oh yeah, yes.
And the population of California are all rich people that can pay for this council or bills or.
Well, if they're not rich, they're homeless.
Homeless. It's a big problem.
The standard of living out here, yeah, we got great weather, but we got it's a very expensive place to live.
Wow, it's a really a big problem. At the same time, decreasing the security, energy security, becoming vulnerable because do not have own electricity, own fuels, etc.
Well, take California. We've been shutting down coal-fired power plants, natural gas power plants. We shut down one nuclear plant, and the demands of the state are such that California imports about 30% of its electricity from adjoining states. We import more electricity than any other state in the country. And we shut down a coal-fired power plant here, but we import electricity from a coal-fired power plant in Wyoming that doesn't have the same environmental controls as the coal-fired plant did here in California. So we're actually importing more electricity and causing more emissions because the electricity is coming from locations that don't have the same environmental controls here. California is so environmentally controlled. If you want to build anything and keep the emissions to the lowest level, you want to build it in California.
Yeah. And the new Secretary of Energy of the United States that is appointed but not nominated yet, of course.
Right.
How do you compare him with the current person that's taking this position?
Well, the current person is basically I guess, the right arm of Biden. Biden wants to get rid of oil. But hey, I'm 100% favor of getting rid of oil if there's a backup plan. And there's no backup plan. And so we're a materialistic society. And if you take a look at the really big picture, we've been a materialistic society for about 200 years. And we're extracting, about 100 million barrels a day, which is, billions of gallons of oil. We're extracting these natural resources from planet Earth, be it oil, be it lithium, be it cobalt, magnesium, whatever. All these resources are being extracted from planet Earth for our benefit. And Armando, there is a limit. The bank is not unlimited. It's going to run out eventually. And there's projections. How long is oil going to last? How long is lithium going to last? How long is coal going to last? We come up with new technologies, fracking, we can find more and more oil. But eventually we're going to run out of it. We can run out of it in 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, maybe. But when you take a look, the planet's been around 4 billion years. And the planet's going to be around with or without us.
Some companies that I met this week, oil companies and providers, were saying that this guy that is being appointed to be Secretary of Energy is a hope because he has a tremendous experience in the fracking, natural gas fracking in the United States.
Yes.
And they expect that this guy can influence in California and other places in the country.
I think he'll be influential throughout the United States. I'm not sure about California because we got Governor Newsom.
Very special place.
I wish him a lot of luck, but we got Governor Newsom here. And Governor Newsom is trying to, Trump-proof California.
Yeah, and people were saying that he's very strong and objective. So his speech is clear. Interesting.
It is interesting because, the climate is changing. Well, the climate's been changing for 4 billion years.
Yeah.
And, I live here in California and, it's a nice temperate climate. The morning can be very cold and the afternoon can be very, very warm. So for us, we can experience a 30-degree change in one day.
Yeah.
But if it changed 30.5 degrees, Armando, I wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have a lifestyle that's supported by our materialistic society. If people want to get rid of oil, just mandate that they stop using the products. Close the hospitals, close the airports. That'll reduce the amount of oil that's needed. And yeah, it's interesting that we're trying to get rid of oil, but you really want to just get rid of the use of the products. unless there's a backup plan that you can make those products, the toothpaste and the solvents and the lubricants from something else. But wind turbines can't make anything, and solar panels can't make anything. So we're a materialistic society, and if you want to mandate getting rid of oil, you're mandating we go back to the 1800s. We had a zero emission society back then. There was no oil, there was no airports, no hospitals, no communications, no space programs. And, my wife and I had a chance to see the space shuttle. It's at the LA Museum. And when you're standing under it, my God, you want this to get off the ground? And you wanted to go, and you wanted to go 20,000 miles an hour? You know, it is extremely impressive because when you see this, the launches of the space shuttle is only this big because the
Yeah,
camera is just 30 miles away.
yeah, that's far from.
So when you're standing under it, my
Yeah,
God, it's huge. It's incomprehensible how big it is.
comprehensive. Let me check for the conclusions three
Okay,
statements to see if you agree or not.
okay.
You are happy with Elon Musk EV's reduction of subsidies.
Yes, yes. The
Yes.
wealthy people have bought them. The wealthy people continue to buy them. And to provide subsidies for the wealthy people, I don't think that's right. Um, yeah, and like I say, if they want a spare car, yeah, it doesn't have to be a gas car
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's clear.
because the subsidies are basically my money.
The second statement to check if you agree or not is that there is hope with the new Secretary of Energy of the United States that probably is becoming nominated on January.
Well, I
You
think he's going to basically face reality. Until we have a replacement for oil and for natural gas and coal, there is no backup plan because wind and solar cannot replace fossil fuels because they do something totally different. Wind and solar only generates electricity, but fossil fuels, especially crude oil, it makes all the products. And without oil, you don't have wind turbines either because it's all made with oil. The lubricants, the motors, fiberglass. I mean, it's all oil based. So I think reality is, and I've said this all along, if we come up with a replacement, I'm all for it. But Armando, we've had 200 years to come up with a replacement for crude oil.
yeah,
And
takes time,
yeah,
long time. Yeah, very complex
yeah.
process. And the third statement, the most, let's say, attractive energy for electricity generation, for your opinion, is nuclear.
Nuclear movement is going around the world. Yes, that, like I say, it's got so many advantages. I mean, we got France has 7 decades to prove it's been effective. Navy's got 7 decades proving it's effective. And like I say, it's zero emission. It's continuous electricity, uninterruptible electricity. Requires the least amount of land. Requires the least amount of products to make the electricity. And yeah, the countries that can't afford to subsidize intermittent electricity from wind and solar, yeah, they're going nuclear.
And if we could create the number four, is that this replacement of uh, fossil fuels will take 100 years at least.
I don't, right now, like I said, there's a lot of ingenuity out there. And since we've had 200 years to replace it, because everything is carbon based. And, fossil fuels are carbon based. And I'm not sure there's another way to generate the carbon. That's why we haven't been able to clone oil.
Well, will take a long time to replace.
And like I say, we're just a very materialistic society, and all the products we use in our daily lives, our hospitals, our airports, communications, iPhones, etc., is all made from those carbon-based materials. and so unless we want to go back to, a non-carbon base, we're back to the 1800s.
Perfect. Ronald Stein, great to talk to you today.
Armando,
Good
you ready for the
conversation.
quiz?
And let's go to January to see the new government starting in the United States.
There'll be a lot of changes, and I think it'll be good for humanity. Like I say, I think bring down cost, and especially we can make the government more efficient.
That's a hope, yeah.
That's a
Thank
hope.
you.
Okay, Armando,
That's a
have a
great
great
day.
day.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Take care.